I'm going to do my best to not use any jargon and talking
That
terms.
jargon post got you, huh?
But it's funny. It's funny when I see those, because that's a comic from a thing that that was just like a text dump before that. But it's like ever since Fisticuffs, I've like consciously made an effort to not go into
tough.
those terms. I've consciously made an effort to try and keep it as general as possible, but I guess I was not keeping it general enough.
I will say one thing, and that is you have had a natural built-in disadvantage in that almost everybody that you know that likes video games around you in your personal life also likes fighting games to a degree. Nobody likes the games I like. So I have a lot of experience explaining why I like my stupid baby RPGs.
I see, but that's not
Really?
I don't see it that way at all, though, because quite frankly, I kind of feel it's the other way around.
Really?
I feel a huge disadvantage in terms of the fact that the fan base that knows us, that is coming from the same place.
Hello, everyone.
Showed up for survival horror and RPGs.
Oh, I don't know about that. That's like
There's a
decade ago.
No, but the Matt and Pat fan base, at its core, was a lot of that. That's why Shitstorm is such a huge deal to a lot of people.
I don't know. That was
like the stuff that I'm interested in doesn't overlap with those. So if anything, I feel like I'm the outsider.
I don't know. That only counts for people that showed up at like year 1, 2, 3, etc. Compared to like
horror and RPGs are a massive part of
luckily
that follow our
luckily
stuff.
For me, I don't have to explain horror anymore because it's dead.
Sure. But I've like over the years I've noticed like there's been some overlap, and those who happen to care stick around, but there's so many that like would not have showed up for my shit.
Have you ever worried
they came for your shit?
Have you ever worried that it is because fighting games are bad?
No, it's because they're hard and unfriendly to start playing.
Yeah.
And they don't explain things, and
it's fairly interesting.
A million other excuses. And their online is not great, and there's just a million things that could be fixed. Whereas an RPG is put $50 down, get 100 hours of fun, and then it's like you read a book at the end, and then you go, cool, I read the book.
I actually think a weirder and more fair comparison would be like let's take Street Fighter and like Warframe in terms of like time investment, but like Warframe doesn't boop your nose when you don't know what you're doing. Right?
There's also a natural stopping point in a lot of these games, in survival horrors and
those, because you hit a credit.
So
for you, I mean, the credits don't even roll after Octopimp is standing over your corpse.
Definitely
you
not.
Still have to go keep playing.
But all that to say that, I think the core came from a different place, and that's why so much of what I've had to do over the years has been on a like introductory, friendly sort of level.
You should have.
There's people that definitely are in and they get it. But like so much of what I'm doing mentally whenever I'm talking about fighting games on like in front of a microphone is editing for people that are new / might not understand it. So when I see one of those posts, hilarious as it is, it makes me go, am I not dumbing it down enough? I really tried my best to never use
the best
super complicated
I know exactly
stuff.
what it is. And it's like you're building off, like you're like, okay, we started this podcast and I explained what footsies is 3 weeks ago or a little bit ago, right? And I'm like, good, now everybody knows what footsies, except most people, they only catch one podcast here, one podcast there, because they're not consistent. Download every podcast.
So then the next time we talk about footsies, even though we explained it last time, they didn't hear it, and so they go, what are footsies?
That's why I try and re-explain the stupid bullshit every time, and I see you die every time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, it's because...
But I don't know.
But I also... number babbies.
Okay, but I also explained that I don't die either. I have resting bitch face if you want to...
You do.
I have resting bitch face, and everyone overanalyzes
you do have
the
RBF.
way... right? Everyone overanalyzes the way I look when I'm just listening.
Yeah.
Right? And even if I'm giving my attention and asking and like responding and being a part of the question, like I'm still going to sit and listen to what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because that's the way I listen.
See, I kind of wish...
But listening normally, as people see it, they're already interpreting that, oh, he's dying inside. And that's the way you interpret it too.
I wish
and
I
you
had...
both are putting that on me, but it's not there.
I wish I had RBF more than what I got.
Sorry to get real, but
my resting face has my lazy eye point to the side, and it's like, the fuck is wrong with you, resting face?
Sure.
Because I'm like,
But like I promise you, a bunch of times where like I'm legit, like we're having a conversation.
Well, don't worry, we can test that today.
Okay, but you automatically, I bet you won't.
Yeah.
Because if it's about what was it even called? It's such a weird name. Disco.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That looks great.
Yeah.
I'm super in and interested, and I
There's
want
time
to play
to talk for that.
Okay.
Alternatively, no truce with the furries.
So no, Woolie's not going to be dying inside on that because that game looks fantastic. I can't wait to play it.
You should play it.
I'm going to.
You should not play it in any professional capacity.
Well, that's the problem. Right? It's a hell of a lot of reading, and I need to figure out if that's even feasible.
You want to have like 5 people if you want to do it, and it's like 45 hours long.
Or it's like you don't read it out loud; you just read it in your head.
Yeah, I floated that suggestion. People didn't like it.
People want to hear the voices. Yeah, because you can't minimize it if otherwise.
Yeah.
Right?
No, you can't.
Oh man, that'd be really hard. But it looks.
We'll get to that in. You know what? Fuck it. Let's just get to that right now.
It looks so good.
Okay,
though.
Disco Elysium came out. Disco Elysium is a disco RPG that takes place in a fake South America, Brazil. It's fake universe, everything. In which you play as a scumbag, shithead, the worst cop ever.
And you have that scumbag face.
Yeah, you have the scumbag face that you can't change.
And you customize everything around it, like you can get dressed.
Yeah.
But you still look like a piece of shit.
In which you wake up and the very first thing in the game is your ancient reptile brain and your limbic system are arguing as to whether or not you should wake up out of your amnesiac blackout because you're so fucked. It is
It's not an RPG. Stop calling it an RPG.
It is absolutely an RPG.
It has dice.
It has literal dice.
What are you talking about?
You know what?
One guy?
All right. So this is going to follow off
anyway
as a relatively appropriate thing in terms of what people argue about genre, because we argued about genre last week with Indivisible, right?
Probably the week before.
Was it the week before? A lot of people don't believe that Disco Elysium is an RPG, and that is a fascinating distinction that I see. And the reason why that belief exists is because the game has 0 combat. It has no combat. It does not have a definitive combat system.
I didn't know that.
It has 0 combat.
That's crazy.
Of any kind. What it does have is conflict.
Yes.
And it is a role-playing game in a form of double entendre, because there is I don't know if you remember a weird argument that people had about Dungeons and Dragons when 3.0 came out. I think you fucked around and looked at least read 2.0 stuff back in AD&D back in the day, and it was like fucking dice up the ass. It was fucking crazy.
So I never played it, but my friend who did was giving me the rundown on how complicated it used to get.
Yeah, it was fucking crazy.
We did play a game where I had a character sheet with all the expanded numbers.
Yeah.
Because you didn't just have the stats, you had it was like a box.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot. It's where Thaco came from and all that shit. 3.0 added something that a lot of people liked and a lot of people didn't like. And one of the things that it added was roles for social stats, right? If I remember correctly. This is like 15 years ago. But basically, people would make fun of 3.0 by calling it a role-playing game in that it would be ROLL.
Yeah.
In that all you would be doing is rolling dice to see if you convince the guy. Rolling dice. And Disco Elysium is like that. It is very Planescape Torment.
And
it's very old-fashioned.
Yeah.
But, hey, dude, I want to fight this guy. No, you know what? I want to fight this child. Something that occurred. Why do I want to fight the child? Because I asked him to stop throwing rocks at my lynch victim's dick, and he started screaming that I was going to rape him. So I decided that I should fight him. What do? I don't go into a combat system. I don't, a grid doesn't show up like in Banner Saga. Real time with pause doesn't come up. It just says physical instrument, dice roll 48%. Click it. You see 2 literal dice roll.
Yep.
Boxcars always wins. Snake Eyes always loses.
Mm-hmm.
And whether or not you pass or fail, you either punch that kid out like a bitch or something else. I don't know because I didn't fail the roll. That's the combat. And because it doesn't have combat and because it is all talking to people, people are saying it's not an RPG, it's a visual novel, or it's a walking simulator. I think that distinction is ridiculous because the games focus on stats and character building is so absurd. So I'm going to back up a little bit.
I would hear an argument that, like, if someone who's played a game, an RPG, if every RPG someone's played has had combat, that the absence thereof would be questionable.
Yeah.
I'll hear that because I also didn't expect anything like the Indivisible discussion we had.
Right.
So,
and this is the literal opposite direction.
I was educated as a result of that.
So you've heard of Planescape Torment, I assume.
I have, and I found it, and I find it funny that, like, again, when we're talking about audiences in this discussion, you can throw out a reference like that and not really have to explain it.
Yeah, because
the people listening are aware.
But if you talk about Fatal Fury, for example, which I think should be a common reference,
then I have to explain exactly what a super desperation move is.
So Torment's a classic. The writing's incredible. I know. You know it, actually, come to think of it, because you were laughing about that fucking dialogue
I love that one amazing choice.
Yeah, that fucking 13 thing. And
it's the raddest shit I've ever seen.
Truth, and then the same options as lie.
Not even that one. No, that's not the one I love. My favorite thing ever is what is the nature of a man.
No, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Because there are 2 there at the bottom that are the same answers, but they're lies.
That's amazing.
Right? So the thing about Torment is that the combat sucks shit. This is Torment. Like, you wake up as an amnesiac, you find a fucking smooth person who knows the general layout of the beginning is very similar. But they said, nah, fuck the combat.
You find a Keanu Reeves.
Kinda.
You know, he fucking went back and recorded extra lines.
I know he did.
That's so cool.
So,
we're talking
the
about
game's
Cyberpunk, by the way.
obsession with statistics is bordering on the unhealthy. And it represents the most unbelievable reactive storyline I have ever seen. So I'm going to walk you through some dumbass stats for a second. Follow with me, gang. This will go somewhere. The main choices you have when you start the game: do you want to be really academically intelligent? Do you want to be emotionally intelligent and sensitive? Do you want to be physically powerful? Or do you want to be dexterous? These are pretty classic standbys. It's basically strength, intelligence, dex, and etc., right? Charisma. Within those attributes, you have 24 derived statistics that determine everything about how you check every single interaction in the entire game.
And every interaction has a check.
Every single interaction. So these range from rhetoric to logic to dexterity, essentially.
Do we have to explain what a check is?
No, it's when it checks against your skills.
I'm thinking about
all
of
I know,
this
right?
now. It's in my brain.
Right?
It's in my brain about when it's not a fighting game, how much has to be explained or not.
So it's got all sorts of normal stats like that. It's got stuff like that's a little more esoteric, like empathy and authority. And then it's got really weird ones like Inland Empire, which is your ability.
What is that?
Inland Empire is named as the kingdom within yourself. It's very Lynchian, and is your ability to see beyond the plot and involves such things as talking to your tie to get information or interrogating a mailbox.
So, like
Dale Cooper from Twin Peaks.
Canadianism?
No, like fucking Deadly Premonition, Twin Peaks shit.
Oh, okay.
Like, you use nonsense magic bullshit.
Okay.
And then you get to my favorite one. I picked Encyclopedia, right, as my signature skill. What did that mean? That meant on every single time I talked to a character, there was an encyclopedia roll in the background, and if it passed, the game would spit out background information about what we were talking about. So if they mentioned a district in town, there'd be a hidden little encyclopedia roll in the background. And if it passed, it would tell me how difficult the check was. And then it would say, this district is the blah, 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 blah. Yes.
That's
if you choose something...
optional. Wow.
If you choose something like the best example possible, electrochemistry. Electrochemistry is your love of drugs, your tolerance for drugs, your understanding of those who love drugs, etc. A really good example in popular fiction, Walter White has incredible logic and intelligence, but Jesse Pinkman has great electrochemistry.
Yeah.
You know when he tricks the meth head into digging up his own yard?
Yeah.
That's a successful electrochemistry test. Right? So when you go into a bar and you see a passed out man next to a spilled glass of rum and the rum has stained the counter, what will occur is you will look at that and your electrochemistry will literally speak to you because the stats are your party. You have 24 party members with you at all times, and they are the aspects of your personality, and they are your stat.
So the lore stat is spread out across
every possible interaction that has to do with information. The empathy stat is every time you talk to somebody and you're trying to figure out how they feel. The esprit d'accord is whenever you talk to your buddies at the police station and you're trying to figure out the morale there. And electrochemistry is every time you encounter drugs, alcohol, or whatever, such as the stained countertop, electrochemistry shows up in your dialogue and goes, hey, man, you haven't had a drink in hours.
Yeah, okay, so this is exactly as cool as I thought it was.
Yeah. And I'll take this as an example. You haven't even talked about drinking in hours, and that's a dialogue option that only showed up because I hadn't asked for a drink at that point in the game. And at this point, it goes, you have three options. It goes, I don't need a drink, a third one which I don't remember, and the first one which I picked, which, you know, I've been secretly thinking about drinking for hours. And electrochemistry will yell at you. You know what you should do? You know what make you feel great? Licking the booze off that countertop. And after I did that, and I talked to the passed out guy beside it, he said, oh, it's a shame I can't offer you any rum. And my character had a dialogue option saying, no, it's fine. I had some. It was fantastic. So these checks, there are 24, are exploding across every conversation in a game that's only dialogue. Constantly. When you are talking to a person for the first time, if your authority senses that they respect authority will pipe up and tell you to yell at them, or assert that you're a police officer, or yell at them that you're a police officer, or take out your gun, etc. And the most interesting thing is that the game will warn you, if your stats are too high, they will damage your character.
How so?
Because if your stats are so high, you will pass every authority check. And authority will show up in every conversation telling you to assert authority. If your encyclopedia stat is too high, every single conversation you have in the game will be filled with extraneous detail that doesn't matter.
You become that weirdo obsessed with that stat.
If your drama is too high, people will take you less seriously because your dialogue options will tend towards the more ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay.
Etc. And
it becomes an obsession.
More than that, on top of all of that,
correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
On top of all that insanity is the fact that I and two friends of mine played and saw every single conversation go differently because your stats can get you. So it's a range from 6 to 1. You don't have enough points to be good at anything, right? If you have 6 and 1, most of the others are going to be garbage. What this means is that when you're trying to do things like sneak away, fight a guy, open up a dumpster, or grab your tie off a ceiling fan, you fail checks you can't redo in most cases, constantly. You fail them constantly. But they're not fail states. They're just your character fucking up. So, for example, in the first room in the game, your tie is on a ceiling fan that is going around. I did not think and forgot to turn the fan off before trying to get my tie. Therefore, I suffered a -3 to my physical impediment to try and grab the tie, failed the check, almost had a heart attack from exertion, took a point of damage, and became near death, and could not get my tie.
Immediately.
When I called the precinct to tell them that I had in fact lost my badge in a drunken stupor, and they made a joke about, well, at least you didn't lose your gun, right? And then I realized that I had in fact lost my gun. I had to pass a saving throw to not take a morale point of damage from humiliation.
Yep.
As my precinct laughed at me.
Okay.
Your character is so strung out and drug addicted that when I kicked a dumpster because I couldn't open it in anger, I took a point of damage, had a heart attack, and died. Okay. Within the first 2 hours.
How's save system?
Constantly in classic. Okay. Autosaves and then just classic save whenever you want.
So there's there's no combat, but you can die
all the time.
All the time.
So so depending on your stats, you have either more health or more morale. Mm-hmm. Morale is even more interesting. If your morale hits 0, your character gives up and goes to live under a bridge, and that's the end of the story.
Okay. Yep.
And
so you're just a shitty old man.
Here's one more dialogue system on top of that. The idea system. Say, Woolie, I start the game, and I'm a drunk piece of shit, and I don't have any money to pay my rent, and I'm going to become a hobo. And I talk to people about becoming hobo. I may unlock the idea hobo cop. You then equip the hobo cop idea, which decreases your, I think it's your authority, because you're a hobo. And once I've internalized that hobo cop idea for a few hours, I will become a hobo cop and gain stat benefits associated with being a hobo cop. You could become a superstar cop, a sorry cop. I had someone on Twitter mention to me that they were not paying attention when talking to someone who was complaining about a certain group of people and accidentally unlocked the advanced race theory option in the thought menu.
Wow.
That if you equip it, turns you into a white supremacist.
So hold on. the thought menu is
they are unlockable skills that will benefit your stats, but also think of it as a job system for losers.
And it's your mind.
Yeah.
And whatever you equip is going to
what you think you are
over time, and it'll further commit to those.
There's a good one that people like to use for an example is when you're arguing with your reptile brain, one of the options you can pick as to why you're blacked out is because you're a superstar cop. Like, like a Starsky and Hutch or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
Now, this is nonsense, and you're actually a piece of shit, and you smell. And the item descriptions of your clothes state that they are covered in piss and shit and cum. Mm-hmm. But you're a superstar. What does this mean? It means that once you fully internalize being a superstar cop, you will gain the stat limits on some of the things like authority and all that will go higher than they would otherwise. But you take a permanent debuff to -1 to logic because you're not a superstar cop,
obviously,
and you are actively deluding yourself every moment.
So the game provides you with the truth, and then you are allowed to interpret it in different
however
ways.
You personally desire,
and based on whatever you go with, it'll start pushing those ideas.
Yeah.
However, like the truth will not change.
Yeah, the game is
amazing. That's incredible.
The game
it looks
is also
really, really good.
Incredibly hilarious.
Yeah.
And I was playing hoping to fail scenarios. And there's an early one that shows this off really well. I didn't have the money to pay my rent. So I chose the sneak away, despite the fact that I was in an empty bar, and I attempted to sneak away. Your character, upon failing the sneak check, starts sprinting, jumps, turns around in the air, and flips double birds at the bartender, and then crashes into an old woman in a wheelchair.
Mirror's Edge.
A little bit.
Beautiful.
Which led to a sequence that was unique to that series of scenarios.
Yeah, I was reading about how it took them like 5 years of just putting all these...
Apparently it was written by a novelist.
Sure.
Which you will believe.
Yeah, putting all these branches together.
It looks
like incredible.
It's the voice acting that is there. It's not all of it. It can't be. Is incredible. The look is like watercolor, like it's hard to say, like hard watercolor, like a lot of sharp lines.
But it's still just reading an audiobook in terms of like trying to play this in front of
it is the most
audience.
complex choose your own adventure game that's ever existed.
Yeah.
And it is
how do I don't know.
Wooly, I streamed it for 3 hours.
Yeah.
I spent about half hour in character creation, half an hour talking to the chat, stuff like that. I only really read for 2, maybe even an hour and 45 minutes. I was doing recitation for an hour and 45 minutes nonstop at about the speed that I'm talking now, and cut the stream short because I was exhausted.
Yeah.
If you have ever, I mean, we've done a lot of LPs and we've read a lot of dialogue.
Yeah.
It's
tiring.
There is literally no comparison I can make that does this game's amount of text justice.
Yeah, it's that much I can tell. I guess, like you said, you flirted with the idea of just reading it internally.
Yeah,
and
it's too much. You would have to put like a timer on your own body to be like, read it. Now wait. No.
I guess what I'm thinking of is that, like, because that's such a hurdle, right? And the LP poison is like seeping.
Yeah. Weeping.
But like, is that unfavorable way of doing it not preferable to not doing it at all?
Well, see, in our cases, it's slightly different. As I'm doing,
because if someone, for example, is like, "Damn, I wish they were reading it out loud,"
yeah,
right, but it's obvious why that's such a huge problem. Should it not then be understandable that, okay, I'm not going to read this out loud, but that is what allows me to actually play it? Since
I'm doing live content, the ability to just like not do it's like it's not even a discussion. It's like it's off the table, right? Because if people look away, they're done. In a YouTube context. With the ability to straight up pause the fucking game.
Yeah.
It's more viable.
Yeah.
The game's also really long.
Yeah.
It's when people recommended it to me, I thought it was gonna be like a fucking 6-hour Telltale style fucking thing. And then I get to the store page and it's a $45 game because it's a full length 40 to 50 hour RPG with the most reactive dialogue I've ever seen. So like this I look at this and like playthrough after playthrough after playthrough after playthrough would be totally viable, right? So the game's an incredible, it's a steal at what it is, and everybody should buy it, everybody. But it's a lot of reading. You want to read? Here's some reading.
Yeah, this is one of those scenarios where you'd be like, do I bet on people understanding the problems, or do the problems mean that you shouldn't have tried?
I don't know. I think you should. I think everybody should take a look at it.
Yeah.
And like a one-off would make perfect sense because you could recite it for a one-off, right? And then just die afterwards. But it's a lot. It's a lot. It's the total opposite of games that have nothing going on and you're just wandering around.
Yeah.
Right?
That's really good for LP purposes.
Yeah.
Although of course there's also like paying attention to everything you're reading and making sure that you don't miss out on key hints.
Yeah. Luckily the game's pretty good at being like, the hints are your stats. The stats are generally trying to help you when they talk to you.
Yeah. But like, do you ever end up in a room after someone said, go in that room and something and maybe something, and then you missed that maybe, then you just stood in the room and went, why am I here?
In the 2+ hours I played, I only went into 3 rooms.
Okay.
So I don't know how to. I do want to give the game extra super good props on top of that for the incredible quality of the writing. I'm laughing out loud constantly. When I'm talking to some lady on the phone and she explains that it was in fact me that in a drunken rage broke the stuffed bird that adorned the bar. The options are, I'm sorry, I don't remember that. I'll try and make restitutions. And my favorite, just fucking bird. Just fuck it. Going out into the back and seeing Kuno, a 12-year-old on speed, screaming at me that I shouldn't get on him with that book learning shit, and his sister yelling at him to escalate and to yell at everyone that I'm digging my dick out of my pants. Like, Did not expect the game to go in that direction.
So that's the other bit, right? Where it's like, even if you do miss something or you bumble into different.
You bumble into something different.
You bumble into different, and that's also really good sounding as well. So yeah, it's funny because like while having this discussion, I was kind of like, I was curious to see. I was like, I'm waiting to see if anyone's going like, yeah, just go for it anyway, or if I'm like, no, don't do it.
You fail forward on this one,
and people are silent on whether or not like that's a worthy endeavor.
Seeing people have this
because
argument.
Clearly everyone is uncertain, at least in chat at the moment, as to whether or not it would be worth it to go into it, but not read out loud.
In the upload thread for like the comments on my stream upload and the little Reddit thread when the thing goes live, same argument. People going like, well,
no point.
I hope Woolie or Pat do this.
Yeah.
Oh, but they can't read all the dialogue. No, they really should. Just take their time. It's like, no, you can't.
Yeah.
This is why I think there was one guy who's like, this game is why I don't think streamers or LPs should read all the dialogue, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, oh man, there is absolutely no agreement on this whatsoever. But you should play it for yourself at the very least, because it is nuts. It is fucking sick.
What about getting some sort of robot reader to read the dialogue like this?
I don't know if that would be possible.
Welcome to Disco Elysium. Press start.
I still think it's really funny that the game was called No Truce for the Furies, and then everyone kept calling it No Truce with the Furries, and then they changed the name to Disco Elysium.
Really?
Yeah.
I like the last name.
Yeah, well. Oh, and it's called Disco Elysium because your character is disco. Despite not being in a disco time period, your character is a total asshole and is rocking disco mutton chops and the spirit of disco in his heart.
No Truce with the Furies sounds way cooler.
Yeah, well.
Damn. Well, if you have an opinion on whether or not dialogue, well, no, but if you just ask that, then the only people that want to see it will even bother responding. People who don't want to see it won't just say anything.
Yeah, it's sample size.
Sample size is not going to work. It's that if interest is going to determine whether or not you even interact with that. Maybe if I just made like a poll on Twitter and then threw it out there, then like if you were encountered with 2 button clicks, you might choose one or the other.
Fun fact about polls on Twitter, gang: not legally binding.
Yeah, no, not at all. But yeah, maybe I'll just make one of those and see what people think. But like, I don't want to assume that you can't like. Do you bet on reasonable or do you bet on unreasonable, right? And that's the trouble, because there's so much here that I think sounds fantastic, and there's so many clear hurdles, and I think that like sitting and reading is going to be tricky, but will the payoff be worth it? So yeah. Anyway. The length is always the issue too, but there you go. So yeah, that's cool.
Length is always an issue.
Yeah, I assume you're. I mean, that's not a problem you're running into with Outer Worlds, obviously. So
no, well, Outer Worlds is voice acted.
Yeah,
like just top to bottom, almost every single thing. The only thing I'm reading in Outer Worlds is like diaries, and like a fucking text log, computer logs and shit. And those are fewer and far between than they would be in, say, Fallout even.
Yeah, don't do it, Woolie. Do it.
Yeah, there. Shut up. There it is. Do it, you pussy. No, don't do it, man. It's ridiculous.
Bring Reggie and Min. Min would not follow any of that. That would be a really not great idea, guys. Let's be real. Unfortunately, I think it would fly right over his head. Come on, we know this. Anyway.